We're going to call this meeting to order subject section 1983 Wisconsin statutes. Our first item is to adopt the agenda. Rick, is there any changes?
There are no changes from administration.
And welcome to the School District of Prescott's Board of Education regular meeting here. So no changes to the agenda. We'll take a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. The next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Tanya, would you care to lead us?
Sure. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have, next item is recognition of visitors. This is public comment rules. Please approach the podium one at a time, stating your name, municipality, and topic you would like to address. A lot of time is 3 minutes per individual, or 6 if you're representing a group that is present at the meeting. All comments should be directed to the board and not to staff or other participants. The board will not act on any comments that are made during the meeting, but the presenting officer may direct the district administrator to follow up with that individual at a later date. And public comment section will be limited to 30 minutes unless board action is taken. And as always, if you want to see our full public comment policy, please go to our board policies on our website. Anybody at this moment care to be recognized?
Hi, I'm Sarah Markert. I'm a parent of a high schooler. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the School District of Prescott for supporting theater. Also a huge thank you to Thomas and Ms. Kay for their dedication to building the program here in Prescott for our children to explore their theater curiosity. More specifically, I'm excited that the musical Sweeney Todd is being shared with our students and community. We know theater offers extensive genres, as we have seen demonstrated by the various productions put on by our theater department. Sweeney Todd is a dark comedic melodrama intended to provoke emotion and lead us into self-reflection. A very intentional drama intended to grasp the audience attention, entertain, and tell a story, all while offering lessons. As in many forms of entertainment, we don't have to approve the lead character's actions in the performance to appreciate the many lessons that character offers. We all know there are many internal conflicts that plague teenagers. The ability of a teenager to analyze their thoughts takes many forms, and for some teenagers and adults, theater is an excellent option for this. It allows us to contemplate self-doubt and internal conflict by using characters on stage, leading us to safely analyze these thoughts and feelings. It teaches us lessons about our actions, good and bad. A musical such as Sweeney Todd is a love story, while it also teaches us the harm brought on by obsession with revenge and resentment. It teaches us about economic oppression, society's faults, and the downfalls of stereotyping. A musical of this nature may not be suited for every audience, nor may all schools have the honor of having amazing directors to walk them through it and help the actors process and interpret it. Trust in the directors is paramount. After witnessing 3 years of my son in theater and the amazing work of Thomas and Miss Kay, I have developed a deep trust of their judgment. The day my husband died, Will and a large group of students were an hour away from home with Miss Kay at a choir event. As their long day with the students was starting, she learned of the tragedy over the phone as I explained what had happened and that I needed to get Will home. We had lost my husband, Will's father, and Miss Kay's friend. I dumped this on her as she was leading a group of children, processing her own feelings and figuring out a plan for getting through the day with these children in her care. She made many decisions that day with the support of Mr. Figge. She led the rest of the choir group through the day and then eventually told Will's best friend and choir family that Will's dad died. She was the one who held their hands, hugged them, and helped remind them of the tools they had to support their friend during this very dark, senseless, sudden time of death. Thank God she was the one with them that day and helped them process this very tough time and many emotions that go with it. Then in the weeks to come, Miss Kay and Thomas picked up the pieces and went on to produce an excellent spring musical. No teacher, director, or coach asked to be the role model during tragedy, or for a parent that is the ultimate exercise in trust. It goes without saying that dark feelings in our souls are real. They plague us. I do not feel hiding from them helps. I appreciate that we have trained theater directors with the skills to walk our kids through this form of expression to help them learn how to interpret this art form, to process the meaning behind it, and to better appreciate the viewpoints. I hope every high schooler sees this musical and conversations rise because of it, because that is the point of theater. Please continue to support the arts in productions like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else care to be recognized?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jonathan Nelson. I'm a citizen of Prescott. I've been here for about 5 years. I'm thankful to have you all as part of my community. I came here just to observe, based on that very point. Thank you so very much for presenting that as eloquently as you did. I didn't prepare anything as special as that. But I do want to point out similar comment that I made online on the Prescott word of mouth page, just to enter into the record. Being able to conceptualize and process feelings like that is an important part of our emotional and mental development. High schoolers should be mature enough for this. Will the subject matter be too much for some people's sensibilities? Sure. Should we suppress our students' abilities to participate in one of the oldest forms of expression and exploration of complex human emotions because of that? No. I can tell you from experience, being a theater kid growing up, I had a lot of friends with mental health issues. And being part of the drama team in Central Wisconsin was a huge part of being able to grow beyond that, to conceptualize and explore those emotions in a safe way. So, it's sad that we even have to have this conversation, but I'm glad that you're all willing to listen. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, John. Anybody else care to be recognized here?
I'm Kirsten Langer. My son is also a senior this year and has been part of the theater program for the last, since he was a freshman. I think Sarah said everything I would want to say about the show of Sweeney Todd, so I just want to echo what she had to say about, more than anything, I trust Thomas, I trust Miss Kay. I trust them with our kids. I know that they would not put them in any kind of harm. I know that from our experience with these last 3 years, Thomas is not there, not just teaching them lines and having them that they need to memorize and recite. They take it to a deeper level. They are exploring the emotions and the meanings behind everything, and the context that their characters are in. And for students like mine who plan to pursue their higher education in the arts, and in theater in particular, I know that this show, I'm excited to see what these kids can do with this show, because I know this is the next step in preparing them for what comes after. And I'm every year just blown away by the talent of the kids, by the dedication of our staff, by Thomas and Miss Kay in particular, to make sure that this program is successful. And I thank you for supporting that, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I actually didn't write anything. Jocelyn Magnuson, my 2 kids have graduated. Thank you, Mr. Figgy. I am following some of this, what's happening. Across the country, there are people choosing not to trust teachers, not to trust the educational commitment of the people that take care of our kids every day. And I just want to speak to the danger of not trusting them. We have a system, we have incredible, I know Miss Kay quite well because Eowyn would not have survived at all in high school without her. And I would encourage the board and the community at large to trust the teachers to guide students in appropriate and acceptable ways. And that I think Sweeney Todd is an incredible musical, and I think it has great opportunities for young people to really understand and reflect on the life that they actually live, not the life that parents might imagine or hope for them. And theater is the best for allowing young people an opportunity to explore dark feelings, difficult feelings, and art is incredible, and we should support that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tasselin. Anyone else? All right, we're going to move on to good news.
Well, first, I'd like to introduce our student representative, Katie Hooper, who is to the far left of me, and she gets to go first. And welcome.
Hi, I'm grateful to be here. So this year, a student leadership group consisting of National Honor Society and the Student Council was created. And we had a meeting before school started to discuss topics such as homecoming, teacher appreciation, community service, and school spirit. At the meeting, the Community Service Club was created, in which we're planning to visit the Prescott Nursing Home and work together to make a positive impact on our community. Homecoming events such as Powder Puff, Rowdy Rough, and assemblies have been planned to get active participation from students in the community together. Lastly, Unity Day is being led and participated by the Community Service Club and Inclusivity Club to broadcast for National Bully Prevention Month. And the Student Council, the 2024 through 2025 mission statement and goals have been created, which emphasize school unity, being a voice for the student body, and promoting and modeling respectful behavior.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Sarah, do you have a counterpart, or are you taking lead?
I have K-5.
Okay. All right, so welcome. We're going to have Sarah Dusick give good news for the elementary, and then we'll have a secondary rep.
Perfect. Sarah Dusick, Malone Elementary Principal, representing also Malone Intermediate with Michael Kosmowski. I think we'd both agree that the school year is off to a great start. It started with Orientation Day on the 26th and then Return to Learn on the 27th, 28th, and 29th. We do have the Malone Parent Committee who is hosting a back-to-school bash on Friday, September 27th from 3:30 until 7:30, I believe it is, at Malone Elementary. And we have a ribbon cutting with Margaret Johnson for our new main office at Malone Elementary, starting at 3:45. So people from the community are invited to come to the ribbon cutting, and then we'll be giving tours of the elementary building with all of the changes. Just the people who come into the main office from the beginning of the year, parents and stuff, they're just in awe with that new space, and they just marvel over how it's kind of been 10 to 15 years in the making and how they feel so good about that main office being up front now. So we're getting lots of positive feedback from that. If you haven't seen it yet, it's beautiful and amazing. So check it out on the 27th. And then I just sent our summer school reporting document to Kara Klatt today to send to the state for our reporting. And I'm happy to announce that at this time, the number that we're submitting is 95 FTE for summer school, which is up 20 FTE from last year, which is amazing.
And that's enrollment instead of
enrollment for summer school, which is amazing. So a lot of that has to do with the Finding Nemo play that was over 3 weeks in summer school that added a lot. That production was amazing. We had a big increase in the return to learn days by adding that third day, plus I think enrollment was up just across all 3 of those days. And then there were just other factors that increased that 20 enrollment number, but overall it was very successful, and that number is going to be helpful.
Yeah, huge. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hello, Matt Smith, Activities Director. A couple things just kind of with the year starting off, a lot of great things in our arts and activities, whether it was the Prescott Days Parade with our middle school and high school band. Bunch of comments on how well they sounded coming out early in the year, and very well attendance. We thank everyone for taking part in that. You look at the one-act play is kicked off here for the fall. A lot of students excited with that. A lot of different activities and stuff going on, different athletic events, both for the middle school and the high school, in full swing here for the fall. So everyone's just very excited about that. Katie alluded to homecoming week coming up. Just wanted to hit on some things with that real quick. Looking for a lot of community support with that, a celebration of a lot of different things going on. It'll kick off there. It's the week of September 30th. Whether it's the parade, whether it's dress-up days, whether it's the Powder Puff game, Rowdy Rough, we're going to do a chili contest. So I know Mike Matzik's going to put his together, some ghost peppers ready to go. Just a lot of fun stuff going on that week. We'll have a home volleyball contest that Tuesday, October 1st. And then the football game culminating the week will be that Saturday at 11 a.m. So that'll be a fun opportunity to do that with a lot of things there jammed in between. So yeah, like I said, get the community involved. The school's obviously showing school spirit and kind of celebrating Prescott as we go. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome back. My quick comments are just to thank both our parents and our community for a wonderful entrance into the school year beginning in August. Also, at the end of August, we opened the largest restaurant in the 5 municipalities. We started running the largest transportation service in the 5 municipalities. We started the employment of one of the largest organizations within the 5 municipalities. Later tonight, I'll talk a little bit more about the budget, but we need to protect our future. You heard wonderful opportunities that exist in the academics, the arts, and athletics. We want to be able to sustain that. We did want to put up a quick shout out for the Wisconsin Economic Development that highlighted the work that's going on here at the Prescott High School with regards to our career and tech ed group. A lot of the work that's going on from an entrepreneurial status under the leadership of our 2 CTE teachers, partnering out in the community. We also now, based on the board approval, are building a kiln where we're cutting down our own wood and starting to harvest that. We've been able to save over $1,200 in student fees heading into the school year, and that'll continue to pay dividends as we move forward. I also would just like to give, if I could, ordain a special day, a special thanks to Mike Koika, our facility and grounds supervisor, as we finish the completion of 2 years of construction that has made our 3 older facilities delightful to work in, and we're ready to make sure that that learning environment continues to help the performance of our staff and students. So a great start to the school year, and wanted to welcome everybody back.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rick. All right, we're going to move on to school business. Our first item, as always, is consent agenda. In the consent agenda, we have the August 21st, 2024 regular board meeting minutes, finance report, personnel report for non-licensed staff, and I think that's it. Yeah, those are the 3. Anything in here that any of the board members wants to pull out?
No.
Okay, I will adopt the consent agenda. Are there any objections? No objections. The consent agenda is adopted. Thank you. And we'll move on to item B, personnel reports for licensed staff, new hires.
Yes, we have 3 new hires based on the board assistance with us last month. We have hired a .6 FTE. The new teacher is assisting at the grade 2 level because we had higher enrollment than we are anticipating, and so that is Carly Redant. We have Bailey Kirk Reardon, who is been hired as our middle school English language arts teacher. And then just to put an asterisk, we are hiring an occupational therapist, Lindsay Fewer. That start date is in January. We are using an outside vendor to cover the first part of the year, but then we'll transition to Lindsay starting in January 2025. For resignations, we have our registered nurse, Jessica Studi, who has submitted her resignation.
And no retirement.
And no retirement.
All right. Board, any questions here? Tanya?
I did, just kind of our plan with Jessica leaving us, kind of when she will be leaving us and what's our interim plan.
Yeah, so she'll be working with HR. She has some transitional pieces. We already have the posting up. We do have some subs, and I'll be working with Sandy Strand if we need to have an outside agency provide some temporary if it's required.
Vicki?
No, that's what I was wondering.
Okay. Helen?
No.
Okay.
Just I guess a quick maybe circle background. I believe it was our last school board meeting, maybe it was 2 ago, when we approved kind of some medical, I can't remember the name of it, but some equipment that would be.
That was last month, Tito.
That would be helping us assess kids, monitor and do some of that stuff. So I assume like some of our kids are still going to have access to care and stuff. It might just look a little bit different, and some of that was approved last month, so.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Good question. No other questions, we can take a motion.
I move to approve the personnel report for the licensed staff listed above.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. C, overnight dance trip.
Mr. Smith, our activities director, will cover the next 2 items. We have an overnight trip for our dance team and then a second overnight girls basketball trip to Eau Claire.
Thank you. Yeah, the first one. First time doing this. The first one is for a dance trip to Little Chute that actually stay in Wausau. It's a reoccurring trip for them, a chance to go against quality competition that they'll see at the state tournament. So they're asking to be approved for 1 night. Their dance club account would cover any extra costs with lodging and meals. So like I said, reoccurring one for them. They've had a lot of success. It's kind of their springboard into state to see some of their competition.
Any questions on this one, board? Let's open it up. It's kind of like Rocky going into Moscow, isn't it? Little Chute, isn't that the arch rival of the dance team?
It's going to be heated.
All right, we'll take a motion here.
I move to approve the overnight dance team trip to Little Chute in December.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. I couldn't help myself, sorry. D, overnight girls basketball trip to Eau Claire.
Kind of similar to be in December here, 27th, 28th. Girls basketball team would like to take a trip. It's in Eau Claire. It's kind of a team bonding thing. They stay overnight. They're going to play 2 games against some bigger schools, quality competition, just a chance to kind of hang out. Their booster club would be covering any extra costs with lodging, food, or whatnot, so it would be at 0 extra cost to the district there. So once again, just asking for that opportunity for the girls basketball team there in December over winter break to go do that.
Questions, anyone?
No questions.
All right, we'll take a motion.
I move to approve the overnight girls basketball trip to Eau Claire.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. We're on item E. Thanks, Matt. Item E, second reading for all the Neal school board policies from last month.
So as a board, part of your service to the community and to the administration is to continue to provide governance through policy. We have updated our policy on typically every fall and then mid-year and end of year. We had the first readings for these 11 items. There was only 1 edit made during the meeting last month. There hasn't been any further follow-up either from the community internally within our staff. A lot of these are pretty straightforward as well, and it runs the range of health education, our human growth and development, all the way down to public requests, suggestions, and complaints. We do have the links if you want to revisit any, but I also did not hear any further follow-up from board members.
Vicki, any questions on anything?
None.
Helen?
No.
Tanya?
I don't, nope.
All right, I don't have any questions either. Second reading, so we're good. Anyone want to make a motion here?
I move to accept the second reading of the above noted policies of version 33.2 with the following edits and considerations from the previous meeting, I guess.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. And lastly, F, consider joining the class action lawsuit for insulin
Prices, yes.
prices.
So we have participated in kind of challenging both the distribution of Juul previous opioids and, still doesn't sound right, and then with regards to social media. The similar law firm out of California, represented by an agent here within the state of Wisconsin, is going after the collusion that occurred across the prescription drug for insulin. The reason that it impacts the Prescott Public Schools is that we do pay for our health care for our staff, and that these inflated prices obviously impacted the costs that we were incurring across time. There has been some federal laws that have been put in place to kind of put some caps on that. There is no additional cost for us to join this class action. Should they prevail, we would receive a portion based on the number of districts that participate and then the award amount. Historically, we've received anywhere from $5,000 to $12,000 based on some of these events, and it helps us either on educational or professional development in those areas. The administration, looking at WAS School Board Association and the administration, suggests that this is a solid one to pursue, and I would recommend the board approve this.
Helen, do you have any questions on this one or comments?
No, I don't.
Vicki?
So there's nothing on our end that we need to do similar to the other lawsuits, is just approve?
Yeah, it's just basically paperwork. Sometimes I have to fill out some information and provide some of our healthcare costs and things like that, but otherwise there's nothing, no direct cost other than time.
Okay.
Okay. Tanya?
Yeah, no questions. I think it's interesting. The past couple years is all we've kind of seen these lawsuits for, and so these class action ones. So we had the Juul, I think we had one on social media, mental health, and now this one. So I can see that there's a little bit of a trend here with education and probably other corporations and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see where this goes, and I don't really see any reason not to be involved in it.
All right, looks good to me, Rick. Okay. So we'll take a motion here.
I move to approve joining the class action lawsuit against insulin prices.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries, and we are through business already. All right, we're on information discussion, teaching, learning update.
I'm going to have Michael Kozmowski. As you know, Michael serves as both principal for the intermediate school, but also with teaching and learning. He has had an incredibly busy month in August, kicking off our teacher leadership events, our keynotes, and our working with our professional learning community. He has an update for you about some of the assessments, and then a continuation of building thinking classrooms. Michael? Oh, it'd help if I cast for you, right?
Yep, so one of the first thing I'm going to talk about is the Wisconsin Forward Exam, grades 3 through 8, has had a fairly significant overhaul to the exam itself. And part of that came from this multi-year process that DPI has of looking at the new standards. And those standards for both math and ELA came out about 2020, 2021. From there, they do some piloting of questions that align to those standards on the Forward Exam itself. So students that were taking the exam previous years, there were extra questions on there that they were piloting to see how kids were doing and how we were doing as educators with the new standards. And now finally, this year, 2024, spring, that exam was 100% aligned to the new standards. So with the new standards, the DPI I also looked at this as an opportunity to look at the cut scores and what we look to define proficiency, but then also the categories themselves. And we actually had 2 educators from Prescott that were part of that norming process and went down to Madison for 3 days in April this last year and worked with a group, both our 4th grade and 5th grade special education teacher worked with a group on helping to define that and what would it look like in the state. So we've had some local flair into this as well. One of the big ones that parents are seeing, and again, this went out to families 2 weeks ago on a Friday, K-8, we sent them out. And so families have already had these in their hands, but just to bring it to the board's attention, they did change these categories' names and the descriptors. One, it was this opportunity because, again, the new standards, the new Ford exam. The other one, big one, is the misconception. In the previous standards, you can see the categories were advanced, proficient, basic, and below basic. And there's this misconception that if you weren't proficient, you weren't on grade level. And DPI tried really hard to debunk that myth. That isn't really what it meant. As an indicator of how well you're doing on grade level material. So they've tried to make that clearer by relabeling them as advanced, meeting, approaching, and developing. It also turns learning into a continuum. Also, labeling a student basic or below basic is insulting. You know, it's not, we talk about growth mindset with our students, and that terminology is not growth mindset. It really gave this connotation, well, you're a below basic kid, and that's just where you are. Versus, if I'm a developing or an approaching kid, I'm getting really close to where I need to be. So again, it's a verbiage change and partially that, but again, giving parents, educators, and students just a better understanding of where they are on that learning continuum. And you see the categories, the definitions within those categories changed a little bit, really to try to show that all of this is on grade level. It's just where are you in that continuum of meeting the grade level standards. So that was a big change of just changing the way that they named it. The other big change and thing that we spend a lot of time on at our data dig is what does it mean then to be in part of each one of those categories. So what I have displayed here are the percentile ranks previously for those categories of, and below basic isn't on there because it's anything below the basic category, the proficient, and the advanced. One of the things we spend a lot of time on is a little graphic to the right there. It's showing you hurdles at different levels. And it's really evident to see here where in 3rd grade, in order to be considered proficient previously, you'd have to be in the 66th percentile. And by the time you got to 8th grade, it was the 67th percentile. But then there was fluctuation in between. Also, if you look at the math, 53rd percentile in 3rd grade, but you had to be in the 70th percentile by the time you're in 8th grade. So with this sort of scoring and using these categories, this really was developed back in 2012. It aligned to the NAEP, or the National Assessment of Educational Progress. At that time, Tony Evers, our governor, was the superintendent of schools for the state of Wisconsin, and he really wanted to push our state to be this model for the rest of the country. Outside organizations have come out and they have said that Wisconsin is the 3rd most rigorous state in order to be considered proficient in the country at that time. So we may have been a little bit too ambitious. One of the things it does lead to is this conflict between us and our neighboring state of Minnesota, or even Illinois, or the Midwest in general, and how are we doing? We have less kids being deemed proficient than other states, but on our ACT scores, we're higher than them. So this is, the DPI is looking at this as an opportunity. They have not officially released what are the percentile cut scores for each one of these categories, and that's why I haven't shared with you. I think we have a pretty good understanding internally, but we also don't have a large N count. So we look at our students and where did we score and what were their scores on the test and what percentile rank are they. So I have the Kosmalski cuts that are not official because we don't have enough kids. There's sometimes a 4 or 5 point gap that we don't know right exactly where that cut is. So and I'm trying to prime the board for this because our report card, initial report card, is going to be coming out towards the end of this month. And then in November typically is when they release the official one that then I can present to you and show you all of our numbers. But when we talk about the hurdles, again, if a kid was proficient in 3rd grade at the 53rd percentile, they make a year's growth in a year's time, they're no longer proficient in 4th grade. So same thing 7th to 8th. You can make a year's growth in a year's time, you're no longer considered proficient anymore. So really, again, by the time you got 8th grade math, only 30% of our students in the state of Wisconsin should have been proficient on the Ford exam. And that is what the state averages was. They were usually right between 29 and 31% of our kids are proficient. And then parents and the community see that and say, how can only a third of our kids be considered proficient? Because that's the way it was set up. Only a third could be proficient. We're meeting those marks. So they're working on trying to maybe change those a little bit so that way there isn't these big jumps and it's a better alignment to our neighboring districts, our neighboring states. So more information will come on that next month when they actually release those to the general public. And then also to us, we still have not seen those cuts. We're pretty confident on where they are. And with them, there should be some levels that grow and some levels that maintain. So I'll bring that back to the board as well. So you can see, are we beating the odds or did we just look better because the cut score changed? Right? That will be part of the conversation. We've already had that with a few DACs in the area. And, based on what we're seeing, they're saying, oh, we grew a lot. And you may not have grown at all. It might have just been the fact that the level has changed for you. So more to come on that. And then the last one, a little bit shorter than it's been previously because the board is getting really well versed and for some reason I don't want to go forward. So Rick, maybe you'll have to go forward with me. Here we go. Building thinking classrooms, right? So this is we talked about a 3-year rollout. We have different cohorts. We've gone through the August PD now. So all of our K-5 educators, including our special education educators, we have looked at Toolkit 1 plus. Toolkit 1 was the first 3 in this framework, 3 different things. Random grouping, having kids do tasks, and then vertical whiteboarding. And then the last one is arrangement of your classroom. So we've done a training for K through 5 for that. And then at the 6-12 level, we have 2 different cohorts. We have our math group, which did this book as a book study last year as a group. They've done also the Toolkit 1. And then our non-math people are just starting to read the book and participate in that professional development. And again, 3 years is I think a very realistic timeline, but even that may need to be adjusted. Again, why do we do what we do? It's because of this daily desired experience that we have for students, a visible learning experience where there's collaboration, students feel empowered in their learning, and they are cultivating their own knowledge and deep knowledge, things that they can take with them, not just something that they have for that quiz or test at the end of the week. Right? We talked about that last month, how mimicking is what a lot of kids do. And mimicking is very effective in the short term. We're looking for long-term learners and long-term knowledge. So one of the big things that we are doing is one of the collaboration Mondays a month is dedicated to building thinking classrooms. And this last Monday was our first one. There's some photos here. It's a little hard in the light to see, but this is the K-5 group working on a thinking task themselves. So we ask teachers to have students think. We also have the teachers think. So the group, it was myself, Alexis Magnino, who's the intermediate school rep, and then Jen Linger is the elementary rep. We had the students, the teachers, doing a thinking task and then reflecting on their experience both as a learner and trying to do this task and then as an educator. And how do you, if you have those feelings, you know you have students in your class that have those same feelings, and how are you addressing those? So again, it's multi-tiered. The secondary math people spend a lot of time looking at Principles to Action, which is a book that came out by the National Math Council about a decade ago, and it talks about 13 practices in a math classroom. So they talked about how does the thinking classroom support the principles that came out in that building. And then our cohort 3, or our non-math people at the secondary level, again, their PLC is working on reading through the book and then doing some reflecting both before reading, during reading, and then on other collaboration Mondays and professional development days they'll come together and then have those deep conversations about what does this mean in our classroom and what does it look like and what are we currently doing that is supporting this work, and then what are those things that we need to tweak. And maybe as we always say, what are some things we need to stop doing as well? Right? We can't just keep putting rocks into our own backpacks. We got to give ourselves permission to give up some things, some of those institutional norms like we talked about. And then just a few photos of our students in action. So this is a thinking classroom. This is a middle school, I believe this is an ELA classroom shared with me, but you can see, when have you ever seen middle schoolers, excited to be doing work and thinking? I don't think we've ever seen that before, but now we see them working collaboratively together up at the board. Up at the high school level, again, one of the things that we're looking at is every room's different, every teacher's style a little bit different. A thinking classroom is a problem to solve. It's not a dance to memorize. So everyone's got to make it their own. This is a picture from Tracy Budworth's classroom, and you can see the picture on the left. She does not have whiteboards yet, but you can see the kids are doing some vertical work on a sheet of paper at this time. But again, getting them those resources, having them try those things out. You can see a whole class here on the orange paper. It's not erasable, but again, we're starting where we're at, seeing how it works that way, and then do we want to get whiteboards that go on those cabinets? Are we looking for mobile whiteboards? What are we going to do? So we're not just rushing out to buy things. We're being really strategic in determining what we actually need in our classrooms. And a thinking classroom will look different in every classroom. It is not a cookie cutter of this is what it should look like and this is what it should be every single day. And maybe our student rep can talk a little bit about that if she's had some experiences of getting in groups and having to think and be randomly grouped and how that goes. So what's your experience?
Well, I have two experiences. I'm a teacher's aide for geometry, so I've seen firsthand of students getting into groups that in most cases they don't want to be put into, but I think it gets them out of their comfort zone, and it makes them work together. And I've heard a lot of really good discussion, and it's really good for them to work together. And on the other hand, I've gotten a lot of invoice from other students who have mixed opinions about it depending on the curriculum. For English, some of them don't think they should have to get up and work together. But for math classes, I think it's a really good thing to have people working together and trying to find different ways to figure out a solution.
That's awesome.
Thanks. Cool.
Anybody else have any comments or questions for Michael or Katie?
I don't, thank you.
I don't think I have questions. Comment is glad to see it's moving forward. Excited.
Yeah, thanks for the update. It's really fun to see.
And I think it's just a testament to the work that Michael has been doing with both the teacher leadership and our administrative team. One of the reasons continuity at the leadership level is essential. It doesn't allow us to, it keeps us from having to do starts and stops with regards to where we're moving. We have a very coherent model, and I think that it also is a testament to that return to learn. I did a walkthrough here at the high school. First bell, first period, math teachers had students up and at the whiteboards working right away. And I think that what you see is the individual typically with the pen is the one that is the scribe but can't talk. And so you see that group and the interaction of the other students. And I think it gives us a great opportunity to keep students engaged, and there's really good educational literature to identify that when students are engaged, they retain and learn more than when they're disengaged. And so I just applaud our staff for taking this risk. It is a multi-year implementation, and we'll continue to build this out. So thank you for the support from the school board. At this time, we switch over to all things budget and finance. And so I'm going to have Kara Klatt,
Are we doing the construction project?
Oh, I missed that. So you get a brief minute here. Sorry. Summer construction projects. I just wanted to, again, applaud the work that Mike Koika has done overseeing the last 2 years. And a heartfelt thank you to our community. In 2022, our community supported $15 million bond referendum that allowed us to put money into infrastructure. This covered everything from plumbing, electricity, air handlers, boilers, roofs at 2 of our buildings, but also because we were able to come in under budget across time, we now have 100% of all 4 buildings have secure entrances. 3 of them have vestibules that are double entered and locked, and we also have internal and external cameras for security. Want to applaud both the work that Mike Hoyka has done with his team, the partnership that we had with Market & Johnson, and would like to remind everybody that on next Friday, September 27th at 3:45, we'll have a ribbon cutting. The architects from River Valley Architects and Market & Johnson will be on site. It'll give you an opportunity also to tour and come into our facilities, and I know that that has been something that's been a challenge since COVID, and we want to welcome anybody in the community to participate, and we'll be setting up other tours at our other facilities at a later point. But because Malone had the most biggest transformation with the front office moving to for the main office moving to the front of the building, we thought we would start with Malone Elementary.
Great. Anybody have any questions or comments for Rick?
No.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to move on to C.
Kara, you get a second introduction, so come on up. She's going to present the city of Prescott is moving towards approving a new TIF district, and she'll explain that.
Everybody's favorite topic, right? TIFs and TIDs?
It was exciting.
Yeah,
I
right.
had the opportunity to represent the school district at the meeting of the project, and so the tax increment district number 6 is what they have been reviewing, and so they discussed some of the different things that they had to look into as far as the businesses that would fit their model, and proposing it to the city council. They talked about water towers, they talked about the sewer systems, the development of the streets, and the TID number 6 is proposed and is expected to be passed by the city council by the end of this year for sure. They thought that it would be passed that evening, and so the boundary map is what they presented during that meeting, and that's basically north of here, across the highway. So it'll be east of the current TID districts. It's currently city-owned. No taxes are being generated on that property at this point. So that is the opportunity for the city to put that into a tax increment district number 6 so they can foresee tax benefits by the year 2045.
And currently, that property isn't generating much of a tax base, correct?
It's agricultural.
And so then the city owns it, right?
City-owned.
And so by having this tax increment district, they have bonds, they create the infrastructure, and then either expand some of the businesses that are there or recruit businesses to come into Prescott, which obviously creates a bigger tax base and takes some of the load off of homeowners.
Correct.
Any questions for Kara?
Tanya, do you have any?
No, I don't really have questions about this, but just so, because I think TIF districts, well, I used to think they were kind of confusing in how they all worked and how they played out into our system and stuff. But I believe it was just last year or a year before a TIF district came into kind of fruition where we were receiving taxes from that. Is that,
No.
Or was it coming up? Am I making this all up?
Yeah, it hasn't, basically, it got moved over to
Okay.
another TIF district.
Okay.
But you are right, when TIF districts sunset, then the money that is being generated by those businesses then gets out into the community. It hasn't impacted us quite yet.
Okay, I thought there was one that they're talking about, but it sounds like it rolled over. And I think that's just the point that I wanted to make, is that these are really good for school districts and for the city because it becomes a tax revenue base for us. But like I heard you say, that's 21 years potentially down the road. So
Actually, 2045 is when they project.
Yeah, and so we normally have a long time. We kind of like, in 20 years, we might see kind of the benefits of that and stuff. And so this is the sixth one then that they're proposing okay, so there's 5 others that'll kind of keep coming through after their 20 years. So great, thank you. This will be interesting. It's always interesting to see how the community expands and what comes in, I think.
Yeah, Vicki?
I don't really have anything.
Ellen? Katie, anything on TIFs? You guys learn about that? So just for clarity.
This was my first experience sitting in on that meeting, so it was very interesting to see what they're projecting for the city.
So I'm just looking at the map. So if you're going on 10 past the high school here, it's to the left of 10 after all the businesses before the
east of the current.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's between 10 and 29. Okay. Yeah. All right. I don't have any other questions. Thanks. Thanks, Carol. All right. Item D is that our last item? Right? No, we got a couple more here. Okay, last big one maybe. Budget and audit updates.
Yes, so it's kind of budget, audit, and all things about our annual meeting that'll be coming up next week. 2 years ago, we kind of flip-flopped the order, which makes a lot more logical sense, and that is to give the board a preview with regards to the budget. As you know, since April 2nd, we've been in a dramatic cost reduction and cutting process. It is very hard to have a long-term vision or the ability to have and work on a long-term vision when you're struggling just for survival. And the Prescott Public Schools is not alone. We are based on a funding formula that was established in 1993. I encourage anybody to go ahead and Google what was occurring in 1993, who was president, what was the type of music, what were the biggest movies. You'll know that Bill Clinton, Groundhog's Day are some of the things that were happening around 1993. That formula has not changed since, and it puts a revenue cap limit with regards to how schools are funded. That has been a challenge, and we felt it, and it becomes very personal. And with us, over time, we are going to give you an update with regards to the budget that was published in the Pierce County Journal. We invite anybody in the community that can attend, is that we have an annual meeting. It is not a school board meeting. It's a meeting of all electorate. Anybody that's able to vote within the Prescott School District, all 5 municipalities are invited. It'll be here in the high school at 6 o'clock, and we'll walk through kind of the budget numbers that we're talking about tonight, but also then to be able to refine that. Before Kara and I go any further, however, we wanted to have Courtney. She's going to be playing a 3-minute and 30-second video that was released by multiple agencies, starting with the Wisconsin Association of Business Offices, the School Board Association, and then also the administration. This is also on our website, and so we'll later show you that you can go to find information about the upcoming November 5th question that will be on the ballot, asking for the community to support a $1.2 million operating levy. That is something that would then go to help support making sure that we're competitive with our in compensation and invest back into some of our programs. Are we ready?
Well, it should have worked by now.
Okay.
You know, it worked 30 minutes ago.
Yeah. Michael's going to see if he can help you. I know that part of this is that I had to stop casting, and we had to do the, there we go. Oh, there it is.
Our public schools are the cornerstone of our community. The education and opportunities we provide for students today shape their futures and ours. Schools, like any organization, need money to operate. But in Wisconsin, funding the needs of our schools has been a growing challenge. State policy limits how much school districts can spend. The vast majority of school funding comes from a combination of state dollars and local property taxes. It's called the revenue limit, and it acts as a cap per student that school districts can spend each year. Even if school costs go above this level, schools can't spend any more than this limit. From 1994 to 2009, these revenue caps were adjusted for inflation, which meant they helped schools keep up with ongoing needs. But since 2010, the resources districts need to survive have fallen farther and farther behind the basic costs to operate our schools. By the end of 2025, the revenue limit will have fallen more than $3,300 per student behind inflation. With a district of 1,000 students, that's a decrease of more than $3 million. What's more, each district has a different revenue cap, and these caps are not tied to the needs of the students or the costs to the schools that serve them. Our job as a school district is to make sure all of our students have access to the exceptional educational opportunities we provide, no matter what their needs when they walk through our doors. But state funding falls short of what it costs to meet the specific needs of many of our students. When that happens, we have to use money from our general fund to cover the difference, which means taking dollars from other important needs. The largest portion of our budget goes towards staffing. Our people are the heart of our schools. Without enough educators who instruct, support, and inspire learning, schools can't provide the lessons, programs, and opportunities our students deserve. Other important budget items include curriculum, technology, transportation, operations, and maintenance. School districts work hard to balance their budgets, yet resources for schools have been shrinking year after year since 2010. With costs growing so much faster than funding, districts are always looking for ways to trim costs and work smarter, like deferring needed school maintenance, cutting programs, reducing staff, and many other strategies. But schools can only cut so much before they start to harm educational opportunities for their students. To maintain class sizes, keep up with rising costs, take care of school buildings, and protect high-quality instruction, many districts have turned to their community to help fill the state-imposed funding gap. Since the arrival of revenue limits, over 80% of school districts have done so by asking local voters to raise their caps through an operating referendum. Most have used the option multiple times. Our children don't have time to wait for state policymakers to fix the school funding system. By putting the needs of our students first, we are investing in their potential and the future of our whole community. Strong schools make strong communities where families want to move and stay. Learn more about school finance in Wisconsin by visiting our websites.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Courtney. Now you have to reverse the plugs so I can cast again. But one of the things I wanted to make sure is that the themes that you heard from that video are themes that play out here at a local level. One of the challenges since April 2nd, and I think it's important for people to understand, is that you can't cut your way to excellence. And yet you'll see over the course of this presentation that over the last 2 years, we've cut over $1.4 million in our expenses. The state has continued to underfund public education, and we currently are receiving less than 1% increases over the last 10 years. And so if you think about trying to be competitive with our wages, you're going to learn a little bit more about that revenue cap is based on the amount of money that we get per pupil. And what is an astounding fact of how the formula is set up is that every school does not receive the same amount of dollars for educating students. And we'll show you how that plays out for Prescott Public Schools. In that video, it is posted on our website. You'll notice that 87% of all school districts in the state of Wisconsin have had to go after a referendum and ask its local taxpayers to invest in its buildings, and in its staff. In addition, Prescott Public Schools, if the formula had been tied to inflation, would be receiving $4 million more per year. Over the last calendar year, 50% of all districts have had to go back to their communities to ask for local investments. So the story isn't just about Prescott. The story is a statewide funding formula that is broken. And one of the challenges that we have is that we can't wait. And as we sit here, our goal is to be able to hopefully, we're trying to get us back online. Let's see what happens. There we are. Thank you. So, teamwork. The first thing that education is funded is based on enrollment and membership. And the way that you can see on this chart is we look at a rolling 3-year average to be able to fund the public schools in every district, but specifically here in Prescott. If you look at the fourth column, moving down, you can see that our enrollment or membership has declined. And so if you have fewer students, you will be receiving less dollars, fewer revenue to continue on with the services that you have. Based on the 3-year rolling average for the year 2020 through 2022, we had 1,327 students membership. The next series that we were funded for was last year, and it went through with a number of students at 1,321, a drop of 6. That was updated based on, they take a third Friday enrollment picture and then also the second Friday in January, and those are averaged. So I just wanted, the reason it says updated is that our final numbers that we were funded on for the last fiscal year were 1,321 students. We were projecting enrollment at 1,300 students based on the earlier report from Return to Learn in our summer school. We believe that it'll bounce up about 7 additional students. There was an increase in the formula of $325 per student. Prescott Public Schools will receive $11,399 per student. So, although we do have decreasing enrollment, which is some of why we had to reduce staffing and kind of load balance our classes, we will receive about $215,000 more this year than we did last year. However, this is to cover all of the expenses, and you know that inflation, although it is finally starting to be tamed, and if you heard, the Federal Reserve has reduced interest rates by a half point, there's some good news coming. But for the last 10 years, public education has been funded less than 1% across that decade. It is very hard to continue to expand. Prescott added a 4th building. We've added higher level articulated courses, and we've added to our athletic and extracurricular activities. So some of those challenges we've had to basically retrench, and it's based on both the formula, but also that we have fewer students. State aid is then based on the per pupil. So this chart is the same chart that you saw before, but we added in the 4th column how the dollars have changed. And so the last biennium, the legislature did approve $325 per pupil increase, and that happened last year. And we then are moving to $11,399 for this year. That'll generate just under $15 million, and that is what the revenue limit is. And then we'll talk about all the other expenditures that we have and why we are asking our community ultimately to assist us on November 5th. But before we go further, we wanted to make sure that you understood that funding for all school districts is not equal. This chart shares with you is that according the distribution for our Middle Border Conference and then our neighboring district, Hudson, and River Falls are presented here on this chart. Remember, I noticed that this information is based on the 2023-24 school year. The reason we chose that is that information is able to be accessed on the DPI website and verified. All this information will be updated with that 325 increase, but it's not presently on the DPI website until all districts approve their budgets in October. So we're going off of where the status was for every district. Know that all of these numbers likely will increase by $325. The main thing I want to point out is that Hudson, that the cost of living or the amount of challenge that they have with regards to educating students, they receive $12,348 for every student that comes through the threshold of their schools. Prescott Public Schools, on the other hand, receives $11,074 as of last year. That's a difference of $1,274. If you take our enrollment, we're asked to do the same task, educate students every single day along the continuum from high, middle, and low, regular ed, special education, medically fragile students, students who are in career and tech ed, students that are going into post-secondary or being career ready and right into the workforce. If we were funded in a similar way to Hudson Public Schools by the state, we would be receiving $1.6 million more. That's just to be on an equal playing field. That's the challenge. But Prescott has been waiting since 1993 for that to occur. And unfortunately, past history of 30-plus years doesn't give me much hope for that to occur. Mike?
Rick, can I just jump in here quick just to clarify too? So this is just state aid money, and it does not include any additional operating levies that these districts, including us, have gone and successfully passed.
That is accurate.
Right, so you're looking at what we have here is just a state aid where I believe Hudson's going for a referendum in the fall, right? For a how much?
They're going for, their school board approved $5 million for their November 5th.
And that's for operating costs?
Correct.
So they're already getting, they're already getting over $1,000 more per student than we are, and they're still going for more. Just as an example of the disparity between the districts, and it's not just Hudson; it's all these districts have gone for operating levies and have been successful. Central was successful recently. I believe Somerset was.
Yeah, and River Falls passed theirs in February of 2024.
This paints a picture of just what these schools receive in Wisconsin state aid, but it does not account for what we're competing against is the overall how much are they spending on per pupil dollars per pupil per student.
Yep. So basically, the revenue that'll come in to every district is different, even if you had the same number of students, right, because it's differentiated based on a formula that was fixed in time in 1993.
Is that formula based on income and stuff, property value, or what's it based on?
No, it was just based on what the expenditures were for those districts in 1993.
So they outspent us in 1993, and now we still feel it. Yep.
The other piece that I want to make sure that people understand, and we emphasize it a lot, is that we're small but we're mighty. And we have done and continue to perform on the Wisconsin Forward at the highest level compared to every middle border conference school in reading and mathematics, as well as our neighbors River Falls and Hudson. So we do a lot, even though we're not always competitive there, but there's a challenge long term. And that long-term challenge is that 83% of our budget is invested in people. We are a people organization, and if we're 30 yards behind the starting line to start, it's going to be very difficult to be able to sustain the type of high-quality staff and to recruit future staff to the Prescott Public Schools. It's going to be hard, based on the public comments, to continue to invest in our arts, our theater, our music. It's going to be hard to build back some of the reductions that we had in athletics and also extracurricular activities. And then some of the programs, and the primary reason that we're here is to the advancement of learning of all students, and the investment of early literacy and mathematics will become a challenge. So with that, I want to transition to Kara, who will walk you through kind of what was published in the Pierce County Journal. It's a 3-year review of audited results and understanding how the fiscal funding systems work within public education, and allow you to ask any questions. So, Kara, give me 1 second as I pull up your publication.
Just for clarity, this is a snapshot, not maybe exactly what we're going to be just walking through next week, but this is kind of...
Correct. Right. And this is a good reminder, is that the final budget is approved during the October school board meeting. There are a lot of things that are still happening. Remember, we're funded on enrollment, and summer school enrollment gets certified at the end of this month. Membership is captured on the 3rd Friday, which is at the end of this week. Then there's equalization aid that rank orders all the property values within the state, and that information doesn't come till October 15th. So these are preliminary information with regards to a balanced budget. So one of the things that we have come out of August is continuing to balance the budget based on the revenue that we knew that we would get, but the final numbers will continue to vary up through October. So, Karen?
Right, so this is the publication that went into the newspaper, and so Courtney worked with me to get all of this information. I provided this for her, so you can see the 3 columns that we have to, and this is required to be published for the first 2 weeks right prior to the annual meeting. So what we're doing is publishing this and then putting out notice that the school board is looking to go to referendum for an operating levy. So we're publishing this budget so that what you see is the audited information for the financials for 22-23, and then 23-24 is still unaudited, and it's actually been audited, but the auditors probably won't close the books until the end of December sometime. And what they do, and part of the reason that the numbers are still moving is because we still may have adjustments to make. We're waiting for DPI to approve my aid certification that I submit to them, and then the auditors double check that. So there's a whole process that they go through, and then I have a conference again with DPI tomorrow, and the auditors again the following week. So eventually unaudited, and the numbers we know right now to be very good. So they're very confident with those, but there still could be a few adjustments that may affect what we're looking at. And the budget numbers, we know that we were able to, prior to posting this, balance the budget, and we still potentially can balance the budget, and we're very confident of that going forward. But there are still going to be changes. Like Rick says, there's still numbers coming in, and it's going to be from both directions, either budget numbers or aid numbers that are coming in. And so there's several components of that. So right now we do know we can balance the budget. What we do know is that are there going to be additional cuts? There's all kinds of information moving still. So you will see numbers on some upcoming slides too that may have changed since this time when we posted these numbers, because we have to continue working. We can't fall behind because we have to produce these numbers, balance them, and double check and verify everything multiple times just to make sure we're entering the correct information and have the correct funding and all of the the formulas are following through from the spreadsheets.
And Kara, obviously, there's a lot of numbers, right, and a lot of funds. Would you, there is a long form, and anybody can ask for that as well. Can you, on this top one with the general fund, can you hit on the information with regards to fund balance, then the revenue line and expenditure line?
So the fund balance is essentially those funds are all of the numbers. It's not, we have $5 million in one bank account. It's essentially a balance of all the general accounts that we have and all of the asset accounts and whatnot. And this is, the fund balance doesn't mean we currently are sitting on $5.2 million, but it's a lot of combination of assets and what the school district has. Some of those numbers, I think we go back to, Rick, if you help me out a little bit on that one, if we're going back to their variation of several different funds, and if I went back and looked at the deeper detail, I have more detail in here. So those are
Yeah, and I think a couple things we wanted to just emphasize is that the fund balance at the beginning of the 22 school year was $6.5 million, and we ended last year at 5.2. It was projected to be 4.8. And these numbers are in the process of being audited, but I do not see much variation that will occur here. That addition was based on the ongoing reductions and cuts and not filling positions as they became open. So it left us in a better position. The difficulty for us is that because we are balanced on the budget, don't know what I just did there. We wanted to be able to point out is that the fund balance should stay at 5.2 because we have a balanced budget. The difficulty for us is to always just remind people that that's not in an account. It's based on the receivables that are booked. We, at this point, have received $0 from the state, and yet our fiscal year began July 1. Federal dollars, we have received less than 1% of federal dollars. And so we have no revenue coming in, and yet it is now near the end of September. We are finishing our first quarter with no revenue coming in. And so we spend about $1.2 million on salaries. That's not any of the materials and everything else. So the board has a policy with regards to what the fund balance must be, and so that is what we'll talk about next week at the annual meeting, but it is also something that we've talked about since April that has generated the rationale for why we're moving forward. On total revenues, you can see that the amount of revenue that we received in 2022 is much higher than what we received or are projected to receive this year. And then you can go to expenditures, and you can see that it was $18.4 million, and we are now approaching $17 million in expenditures. So this goes back to continuing to reduce some of our programs and staff, as you all are aware, but it also creates long-term challenges for us if we want to expand and retain people. This is kind of the general fund, which we refer to as Fund 10, but funds, the public education is based on a bunch of buckets, and these buckets are kind of dollars that are sequestered and can only be spent with certain parameters. So do you want to just walk us through the different kind of highlighted special projects and the like, and just kind of share what this information is with regards to revenue and expenditures?
Sure. Special Projects Fund then is essentially about 60 accounts that are considered Fund 21. So the first two lines, beginning fund balance, ending fund balance. and the top two lines you're looking at on the screen. Those are the 60 accounts that we basically monitor, and those have, they're specific to donations, grants, for activities, clubs, or general anonymous gifts to help, say, the student base. And so those funds are accounted for in the first two lines of the Special Projects Fund. And so those we're currently showing as far as budget and as far as what we believe to be actual right now, and with the unaudited numbers from 23-24, pending any adjustments, to be approximately $300,000. The second two lines you're looking at in special project funds would be, it's an accounting of Fund 27 in and out. And so those numbers actually, they flow through in those two lines, and actually a lot of that expense and whatnot, you'll see on the longer version of the expenses actually come into the chart we were looking at above that would be the general fund.
And so kind of Fund 27 being special education.
Special education.
Okay. Debt service fund?
Debt service fund is Fund 3839. That would be accounting for the balance of the funds that were repayment of notes, bonds, and loans. And so those funds are either earning interest, so there's revenue. For the interest, the revenues you would see back in 22-23, a lot of that would be from your capital referendum?
Correct.
Yes. And then, so you can see since then, the balance is depleted substantially. That's for the project work that's been happening at the schools. But so the debt service fund is essentially the fund that we're using to monitor the repayment. And so there's some interest incoming in there. There's also expense going out, right? And that flows also along with the capital projects fund. And so that's the construction improvements and acquisitions fund. So that'd be Fund 46 and 49. And those funds are essentially where you're going to see the capital projects booking through.
And ultimately, those dollars can only be spent on what our community has already voted to approve, and it covers like a mortgage, it's covering the principal of the bond payments and the interest that each of those bonds have.
Can I jump in here, Rick? Mm-hmm. Is that, you said, does this include Fund 46?
The capital includes both the $15 million infrastructure and Fund 46, so it is a combo.
Do you guys know what approximately we have in Fund 46?
Yes, we have just under 900,000. Okay. It's 869,000.
That's at the start of this school year?
Correct.
That's what it is? Okay. Yep. And we don't have any plans at this point baked into the budget where we are going to use Fund 46 yet. Do we? Smiling.
Yeah, we had some unforeseen things, but
all right. But that's a good thing to know. We're at about 900K, and so we can dip into that if we have to for anything that comes up unexpected.
And basically, there's two conditions, right? And so Mike Koika will be coming to you likely in November with our updated 10-year capital improvement plan. Okay. So as long as it's listed on the capital improvement, obviously, based on our community support, we just tackled a lot, right, with our roofs and our boilers and things like that. However, it's just like any other house. There's always going to be a project. So as long as it's on the 10-year approved plan, then you can spend those dollars. It is a trust fund. It can only go to capital improvement. The first thing I did want to note is that for the first time in 2 years, we'll be able to put, or at least we are budgeting, that we would put some additional money into Fund 46 this academic year, and it is part of our balanced budget.
Great.
Now we'll move into Fund 50, which is food service.
So food service is the beginning balance, right? She's got, right now the budget shows beginning fund balance at $37,000. Ending fund balance, $77. We don't believe that it will be in deficit. this coming year, but there are still some things that we're looking at and some numbers that have to be populated into the system. So a lot of the work that's been done too has been in the last couple of recent weeks since this has been published. So you'll see some differing numbers too when we go on to the long form of this informational budget, the publication, because there has been work since then, and so we're still trying to build into what would be presented essentially in October.
But if you were going to the dentist, this is where they tell you, you don't have a cavity, but we're going to be watching that tooth. You can see that the fund balance has been depleted from $240,000 and projected to be $77 over a 3-year period. Like I mentioned at the beginning of my comments, we opened the largest restaurant in the 5 municipalities as of August 26th, but it is a business and it can't be negative. And so if it becomes negative, Fund $10 then need to be moved over there. Obviously, the fees and some of the changes to the menu and things like that are course corrections that we're taking to try to make sure that that projected estimate of $77 at the end of the year is not our fate. Question?
Well, I was just going to comment, we've been talking about this as well for the last couple months. We did increase prices. I know that there's some ideas, like how to engage staff in buying and all that kind of stuff too, but it is about like an $80,000 roughly like each year that they've had to dip into. So we're basically having to make up about, and there is $40,000 roughly, but we do have to make up $40,000 with some of our new practices, right? And if we're not able to do that, that's where we might have to dip into our general fund balance kind of stuff to cover it. Okay.
Correct.
That's a big task.
I think when I was talking to Nicole too about the programs that she has too, she brought in a new vending machine, right, that's got the approved snacks and whatnot in there, so she's hoping to make some progress with that, right, and then increase in rates and some other things and possible potential savings and changes to the menu, so.
Yeah.
Okay, community service fund too then, so what you're looking at, beginning fund balance with community service fund, right? So what we're looking at too, and you'll see on some future slides here too, is that we're anticipating $225,000 towards the community service funds. Some of those beginning and ending fund balances that you see too, those could be impacted by a change in fees that are incurred from community service programs. So if there's a really popular program, we could see more revenue, there could be more expense. It's really hard to forecast those numbers at this point, but that's potentially what we're looking at with what we know from the past, and part of the forecasting with the budget for 24-25 is kind of reviewing the past 3 years prior, knowing what the audited numbers are coming back at, and trying to forecast the expense based on both CPI and other things, other unknown factors too that have to be taken into account for it.
And can you just remind people what our community service funds include?
So,
the programs?
So there's some athletic, I understand, right, middle school, and like community service, any kind of programs that someone in the community is interested in. Also, we have what the senior
gathering. Yep.
Their gathering place down there.
So
too,
it's so it oversees both our Prescott Community Rec and are also community ed. And so what you see is the revenue is, some of it is a levy that we put on, so it helps with the coverage of the youth sports, our SRO program, and community ed. But then they also have revenue coming in based on fees that are paid by athletics or individuals that are taking the different courses. And then you want to just, this is kind of the last table that is summative with all regards to the expenditures, and what the increase is or decrease is across time.
So we talked about this a little bit earlier today and a couple weeks ago as well too. A lot of this, what you're seeing, 22, 23, and then net total expenditures, the increase in that into 23, 24 is essentially a lot of that is the expense of the capital projects that have happened. So all of that table there encompasses all of those tables that we looked at above. And so that's the funds that are transitioning through from year to year. So essentially unaudited, you're looking at, it was a 27% increase from prior year. This coming budget year, where we're currently tracking is a negative 26%, which is substantial. It has to do with a lot of the cuts that have been made. And so I guess, how much more you want to speak to that at this point?
A lot of the cuts, but also the building projects and stuff were done, paid for, yeah.
Correct, thank you.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to kind of bring you back to the presentation, and this page kind of summarizes, I think, all of those different funds, the many different, I forgot how many woofer codes and sub.
4,000 or more,
yeah.
Just the Prescott.
Yeah, but this is really what impacts our community, and this is what they'll be voting on. What the annual meeting will vote on, and then the school board will vote on for our budget. Then we'll talk a little bit about the referendum that's can be a partner to this, but this is just the annual budget that we're looking at. It's across time. You can see that the general fund, the levy amount has increased. Vicki, you pointed out a little bit is that one of the things that we understand is that we receive $325 more per pupil. But what the legislature forced every district to do is you have to add that to your levy. And then depending on where your district is in equalization, a portion will come from the state and a portion will come from local. Prescott's somewhat fortunate in that the state still covers about 60% of our overall funding, and our local community pays 40% that is based on their property taxes. So the increase obviously is coming from the per pupil increases. We do have referendum debt, and so that is based on what our community has already approved, and then this is our mortgage payment and our interest. And so we'll be paying $3.7 million. We do have energy efficiency. It was a non-voter approved implementation of energy efficiency that occurred in the year 2018, and that is just shy of $400,000 at $388, and that's an obligation that we continue. We just talked about the community service fund. We are recommending that be levied at $225 to continue to cover the additional programs that we've put in place with our SRO and also our middle school sports. The total school levy, therefore, is coming up. There we go. Will be $10,530,240. It is an overall increase of 1.73. And remember, we talked about earlier that we provided our staff with a 2.5 increase in salaries, and 83% of our revenue, or expenditures, I should say, go into staff. So how does that occur? That means that our technology budget was reduced. That means that we cut back on hardware. 15% of our technology, the computers, the access points, was reduced by 15%. All departmental budgets were reduced. We've even gone down to our color printing having to be capped. We reduced staffing numbers in salary and hourly. You know that we cut C teams in the budgets for athletics and theater. So the district continues to be quite fiscally sound with regards to being stewards of the community money. We are showing an increase of 1.73%, even though it is also above what will be funded, meaning the increase was less than 1%. So those are the things to kind of take away. The way that that'll play out is next week during, and it says estimate, because as we mentioned, we still have enrollment, which is the primary way that we're funded. Special education budget is being finalized, and we know, if you've paid attention, is that 100% of all school districts have to take money out of Fund 10, put it into Fund 27, because Fund 27 cannot go negative. Currently, we spend $1.8 million in addition to what we are receiving from federal and state dollars. That is a continued pressure point for all districts, and we encourage our community and advocates to reach out to the legislature. It's not a blue or red issue. It's about students and making sure that all students have access to free public education. The operating fund would be $6.175 million. There are no tax chargebacks. We talked about making sure that we pay our principal and interest on Fund 38 and Fund 39, and then the community service fund would be at $225. Do you have any questions about the different funds, where we're situated, some of our areas of need and what we're watching as we head into the annual meeting and then ultimately approval of a final budget in October?
Anyone here? Questions, comments?
I asked questions as I went. One other thing I wanted to point out, and just because I get this question a lot in the community, I think we all do, which is when people see a fund balance and then money left over because we budgeted, right? Like, so we didn't overspend or whatever. Just a recognition that we can only spend within that bucket on those kind of items. So we can't take money from one of those funds and put more towards another fund, even if we happen to be spending less than we might have in there. It has to stay within those buckets. It really makes it somewhat difficult in manipulating and maneuvering what we use our money for. Different than like a home budget.
Correct.
Yeah, keep going, right? A couple more slides.
Okay. Then basically, that is kind of where we're going to be next week. We'll be in the same room, September 25th at 6 p.m. We'll go through kind of a more in-depth presentation with regards to where our budget is and updated numbers. I do have, and I can put up the agenda so people can see that for the annual meeting. This is, Courtney, I believe it'll be in the paper as well as it was posted in our public locations this week. Is that accurate? Okay. And has it been posted on our website as well? All right. See if I can. There we go. So next week, again, just a reminder, it is annual meeting of everybody that's eligible to vote. It is not a school board meeting. It starts with the board chair calling it to order. We select a chairperson. We review the minutes from last year. We will have an update both on the referendum projects and a slideshow showing some of the activities that have occurred. We'll talk about the changes that have been invoked, the challenge, and then ultimately what the choice is for our community. We talk about Vision 2035, and we're basically challenging our community about what do you want the Prescott Public Schools to be, and that's the choice that's going to be on the ballot on November 5th. We will then share a little bit about Vision 2035 that we hope we can continue to elevate and get out there with our stakeholders, but it's contingent on support of the November 5th operating levy in order to make sure that we're not in survival mode and that we can kind of be at a stable part. The budget hearing, then there's a resolution of the tax levy. There's salaries for the board members that is discussed. Reimbursement of the board member expenses, and then setting the date for the next annual meeting. So those are the kind of the procedures, and encourage anybody interested to participate and learn more about educational funding. I wanted to end with just a quick reminder that we do have a website that has gone live, and we would encourage our community that has questions to make sure that they are staying informed about public education and funding within the state of Wisconsin, but how it impacts Prescott Public Schools specifically. We're 47 days away from making that choice and that election. The video that was played tonight is on the right-hand side, and you can click and listen to that and share that among family and friends. This does show the difference, and once we moved off the beyond 1993, the revenue cap limit in 2008, that is when it was decoupled, per pupil funding was decoupled from inflation. And if that change did not occur, Prescott Public Schools would be receiving $4 million more in revenue. Over that last decade, as you know, heading into last fiscal year, 6 of the previous 8 years, Wisconsin provided schools $0 in increase. We have the information that was shared tonight about the maximum per pupil funding and how that in Prescott stands compared to the middle border and our neighbors. We also know that one of the main reasons that we are a high-quality, high-performing district is because of the staff that we have. You see now a breakdown of the starting salary of staff in the middle border and neighboring districts. We included River Falls and Hudson among middle border, and you can see that Prescott is at the lowest level, and yet we provide some of the highest performance on the Wisconsin Forward. I do want to note that Hudson's staff does work 4 additional days, so there is an asterisk. Staff make about an average of $400 a day, so if you multiply that out by 4, it's another $1,600, just so that we're comparing apples to apples. Understand that the cost, just like everybody that has a household, is that gas and heat has increased since 2015. Over that decade where we were receiving less than 1%, increased by more than 70%. Electricity has gone up by 96.5%, and our health insurance has gone up by 40%. It's hard, again, to continue to have to shift those dollars to those fixed costs. They're not electives. We have to make those costs, and that's the challenge. But the most important piece that I wanted to point out that is different than in April, and it's based on some of the factors that are in play with regards to how property values across the 5 municipalities are, that if the referendum of $1.2 million is supported, it would not change the mill rate compared to last year. Mill rate can make people's eyes spin, but basically it's the proportion of your tax property that's levied by the district for public education. So basically, there would be no specific impact by supporting the 1.2 as it's divided across the 5 municipalities based on the values that have been put in place. So that is kind of where we're going to end tonight. The question that will be on the ballot is available, and I'll put that up on the screen as I conclude or answer any questions that you have.
Board, Tanya, do you have any questions or comments for anything that we saw here?
This is my first time seeing the new site there. That looks great. But really, I don't have any questions. I just really encourage people to come to all the information sessions we'll be offering, come to board meetings, come to conversations, ask. Don't just take your information from social media, but come talk, ask for information. and just get out there and vote, I guess. We went through a really tough time less than a year ago, and I think our staff are really feeling it at the start of the school year, and it would be very difficult to do that again. We already are cut really deep, so. Yeah.
Vicki?
Yeah, I agree with, what Tanya was saying. It's important for everyone to get out there, do the research. Yep, just don't take one source at its word, look at what the school put out, go online and check it out through DPI, check it out through, I don't know, ask someone you know who lives in Hudson. I guess just, what is it like there? How has that affected them? I think it's important to really understand how this has put every single district in the state into kind of an impossible position where we're asking for money or we're putting our staff and our students in an awful position. Like we can't make both sides happy. We have to, it'd be great if we could support the schools and not, we're already giving taxes to the state, but they're sitting on it, and yet we're asking you guys to give us, to approve more this debt override. I think it's important that we decide really what we want our district to look like. A strong district does make for a strong community, and the teachers and staff that have stuck around, so happy that they have and are giving it a go this year, because this year's not going to be easy. So hopefully we can get the community support and relieve a little bit of that pressure going into the end of this school year and next year. So I just encourage everyone to get out and vote.
Helen, you got anything?
Yeah, I think everything I would say has been mirrored here. Ask questions, ask the right people the questions. I think social media, unfortunately, does play a good role, and also on the other side, not such a good role of letting all that information out there that's not always true. I think our students have done an amazing job, and it shows. Our teachers have done an amazing job, and it shows, and now it's time for the community to do that same amazing job and support them. So, get out there.
Yeah. Katie, you got anything?
No comments.
Yeah. I'll just echo. Well, one thing I wanted to ask, and Rick, this was in something that you sent us. 53%, does that number ring a bell? 53% of the schools in 2024 have gone to referendum for operating increases.
Yeah, it was
this year.
Yeah, the last calendar year, 53% of school districts have gone to referendum.
I think that's a huge stat that people need to understand. That Prescott's not alone. This is part of the fiscal cliff that we talked about 3 years ago. So 53% of schools are going to referendum this year in 2024. All right, and the other one that stuck out at me was the state funding that we've gotten over the last 9 years is 1%, not even. So we're getting like 1% from the state. How can anybody run a business that's 80% personnel heavy and be able to retain staff at a 1% pace? So that we could continue to go for referendums every 5 years if that's the case. If they're going to continue to give us 1% or less, you'll be seeing us in probably 5 years like we projected, right? So unless something changes, it just echoes that the state funding is broken. But there's nothing we can do about it. We got to play within the rules, and this is the levers that we have. We either cut or we ask for more money from the local community, and that's where we're at. We've already done the cutting. Now we're back to try to bring some of that back. So, yeah, that's all I had, Rick. Anybody else?
I just want to add too, you said bring some of that stuff back, and when we did some of our work sessions, yeah, we might be able to bring some of that stuff, not all of it, back for next year, but if we project out in a handful of years, it's not even about bringing some of the stuff back. Like, we are past where we were, where we have to start looking at cuts again.
We prioritize teachers and competitive salaries this time around. Rick, you want to finish up there?
Yep, that's the end of our report and finances.
All right, I think we'll move on. Recognition of visitors. Anybody in the audience care to be recognized again? Everybody got recognized first time around? No? Okay, we're gonna take a motion to adjourn here.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I think we're adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.